The iMac was one of the first products that Steve Jobs introduced when he returned to Apple, and it was released in 1998. That Bondo Blue iMac was one of the biggest factors in turning around Apple to keep it afloat. The current iMac design was revealed in 2012 and it's stayed pretty much the same ever since. Rumours now suggest that we are likely to see a 24-inch refresh to the iMac using Apple Silicon in the coming months. So in this video I'll be breaking down exactly why Apple Silicon makes a massive difference to you with an iMac, and also the main features that we should be able to expect, or at least my wish list. I'm David from Living on iPad, and I simplify Apple so everything just works for you. If you like Apple products, hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Now, the biggest rumours out there at the moment are around a 24-inch iMac form factor, which is what we will focus on in this video. That would be replacing the current 21.5-inch iMac that got almost no love in the update to the iMac 27-inch that came just a few days ago. As I say, it looks like this is going to be replacing the 21.5-inch model with a 24-inch model, which I think also means that once the larger version is refreshed, the 27-inch, we might be looking at going up to even a 32-inch display, which would match the Pro Display XDR, which is the super high-end display that we have at the moment. Apple has got some track history for this, where the Apple Thunderbolt display used to use exactly the same panel as the iMacs, so I think it's quite possible that the form factor will very much match the XDR display. The biggest rumours at the moment are that the iMac will follow design cues from the iPad Pros, and I think that is just going to be the general direction that Apple goes with all of their designs going forward. We've already seen some details on leaked designs for the next iPhones, the iPhones 12 and iPhones 12 Pro, and having seen those squared off designs, the boxed off designs that look a lot more like the old iPhone 5s and the iPhone 5S and the original iPhone SE, I do think we are going to be heading back towards that design aesthetic, which also matches up really closely with the XDR display. That's got those rounded corners, it's got the slab sides to it, and I do think that that is going to be very much the way that Apple products look for the next few years. Probably the next decade is going to be very much with that slab-sided design. Assuming that our 24-inch iMac looks a lot like a blown-up iPad Pro on an iPad stand, with my iMac 27-inch over here, you've got a static height stand, but you have got display tilt. I think we'll see something very similar to that. I don't expect it's going to have the same range of motion as the XDR display, because that stand on its own costs $1,000. However, we will come to, in a little bit, a possibility of a moving stand and what that could mean for the iMac as well. So one of the big things on my wish list is to actually make the iMac in general a better place for other Apple devices. One of the biggest complaints when the Apple Magic Mouse and Magic Keyboard were refreshed to use Lightning connectors for their charging was that the charging port for the Apple Magic Mouse is actually underneath. You can't charge and use the Magic Mouse at the same time. It's a really weird design choice, but obviously they just did not want anyone to see that charging port when it was in use. I think if Apple was to move to wirelessly charging peripherals, which you don't need to worry about the charging speed as much because you can leave them on charge overnight, and actually make the foot of the iMac into a charger, a wireless Qi charger, that would be a super good use of the space, because you could leave your iPhone there during your work time, so your iPhone is being topped up wirelessly. And also we've seen leaks for a magnet ring in the back of the iPhone, which may well be to help locate it on a charging base. That would be a really cool idea, especially if you could just toss your iPhone under there and it pops itself into the right place to charge wirelessly. But imagine you could even keep your AirPods under there. That could be your regular wireless charger. In general, these Apple peripherals, the keyboard and mouse and trackpads, they tend to last quite a long time on a charge, so you don't need to charge them every night, but you can keep them topped up, or your iMac can just inform you when you need to pop them onto the charger overnight. So we've solved wireless charging for peripherals, and even with reports that the iPhones themselves won't include a charging brick in future, they're just going to include your lightning cable and the iPhone itself. Having wireless charging in more places is going to be a really, really cool thing for Apple devices in general. I honestly think all of these little things, if they do bring them in and they do work nicely together, it's just those little magical touches, those little things that everyone wonders, why didn't anyone else do this already? And that's what Apple used to be super, super famous for. They've dropped the ball a couple of times in the past few years, but that magic is still there. And I actually think that Johnny Ive as much as I've loved his designs over the years, might have been holding Apple back in asking the "what would Steve do" questions a little bit too much, and that's why since Johnny Ive has stepped back, we've actually seen a lot more innovation from Apple. I've never understood why Apple doesn't allow the iPads with Face ID or Touch ID to change between different users when you use that biometric to log in. So if I touch the Touch ID on my iPad, if it's me that's unlocking it, it should go to my apps. If my son wants to unlock it, it should go to a restricted child's mode, for example. And iMacs would be a great place for this to happen using Face ID. Now, there have been rumours already and leaks from the code that show that Macs in future are going to have Face ID built in. It's going to be within Macs and within macOS in general, and I actually think that that is a great opportunity for the iMac, because we've already seen leaks for the MacBook and the MacBook Pro 13-inch, neither of which have mentioned Face ID. They have mentioned Touch ID for the MacBook Pro. So I think for a desktop Mac, where you're going to be sitting down at it, you're going to be coming in, you sit down, and as you sit down it unlocks and it loads up your user preferences. Imagine how awesome that would be in a school environment where multiple children use the iMac throughout the day. All of their user profiles are saved on a central server in the school, and as they sit down, the Mac essentially recognises them and loads up their own work, so that you can literally only work on your own files. You could even be sitting exams at a computer and have the Mac actually recognise that it's the right student sitting there taking the exams. That could actually be a really good thing, especially with the remote computing that a lot of people are doing and remote learning right now. So an iMac that unlocks and knows who you are as you sit down at your desk. I know Windows has had Hello for a long time, but Face ID is just galaxies ahead in terms of the technology that's used, and that would be another great magical experience for a Mac. Apple Pencil and touch support. Now, I know this is a little bit controversial. There have been certain Mac analysts that have said yes, touch is definitely coming to the Mac. There have been others that have said absolutely not. Why would they do it? The leaks that we've seen for the MacBook Pro 13-inch say it's still going to have the touch bar, and I can't imagine you would add the touch bar and still have a touchscreen display. That doesn't make any sense. However, the iMac has never had touch bar because the keyboard itself is a Bluetooth item. Therefore, it makes a massive amount of sense to have a touchscreen on an iMac, especially if you take some cues from what Microsoft did with their Surface Studio and you make an articulating screen that can come down as a drawing board, and then you grab your Apple Pencil, which is magnetically attached to the top of the display, and start working on it right away on there. I think that would be a super compelling addition to the iMac range. I think that would be an incredible product. Apple Pencil itself, Apple Pencil 2, which we have at the moment, is the one for the iPads Pro. That magnetically attaches to the side of the screen. There has been, I think, one rumour that I've seen, this is unconfirmed, but that the Apple Pencil 3 may well have a camera in the tip. Now, a camera in the tip, you might wonder what that would be for. If you touch something on the screen with your pipette tool on Adobe Photoshop, you can grab that colour and use it in your work. You can essentially use that as your paint pot. Now imagine using an Apple Pencil, which you can tap on anything in your environment. You can tap it on a wall to grab the colour from there, you can tap it on a desk, you can tap it on a leaf and grab exactly that colour using the Apple Pencil and then paint with it on the screen. That would be a really magical experience. So if Apple Pencil 3 includes that kind of technology, I think that could be another magical Mac experience. Oh, this is becoming like a catchphrase. Let's use that more. The display quality in the iMac. As I said, I can't see Apple bringing a 4K display to a 24-inch iMac when the current 21.5-inch iMac is using a 4K panel. I think they will want to bring their 5K displays that they have currently in the 27-inch iMacs and bring those down to the 24-inch size. That will give better pixel density, which means more pixels squeezed into a smaller space. That means that you get an even sharper image, and especially when you're going to be working directly on this, potentially using an Apple Pencil, it's going to be vital that you've got that level of detail in the screen. The reason as well for a 5K display over a 4K display is it means that you can actually edit 4K footage on your screen and still have space around it for your timeline at the bottom for a video and your tools down the side. And the same if you're trying to do large photos that you're editing. The more pixels you can get into that screen, the more detail you can see, and especially when you're going really close in. I can just imagine the way that artists and photographers and video editors will be able to use this. I can even imagine at the event the guys from Pixar, because Pixar has obviously had a huge history with Apple. Steve Jobs was the one that kind of rescued Pixar from Lucasfilm, and then when he went to Apple, he was one of the guys that sold it then to Disney and became a huge Disney shareholder. So I can imagine a keynote presentation where some of the guys from Pixar come up and show how they can animate on a 24-inch iMac display using Apple Silicon, and how much faster it is than their old Intel machines they were using before. That is going to be an absolute blinder of a way of selling these iMacs to people. Now, what's going to be the display technology that's used? It's not going to be an OLED display. I don't think. Apple has been registering trademarks for micro LED and mini LED displays. Mini LED is essentially what we've seen in the XDR display, where you've got local dimming zones. What does that mean? That means instead of having one big backlight that lights the whole screen and the LCD sheet in front of it that filters the light that comes through, you have a lot of individual LEDs that light individual parts of the screen, and you can dim and light different areas. So that means you can get those really deep blacks that you get with an OLED display, but you don't get the drawbacks like on large panels. You tend to get uneven brightness with OLED, and also you can get a lot of screen burn-in, which is a lot less likely to happen with LCD. It can happen, but it's a lot less likely. And with a Mac display where you're going to have a dock sitting at the bottom of the screen all the way through, that could be a big issue if you were using OLED. So I think we're going to see one of the first micro or mini LED displays in the new iMac. That's it for me on this video. So do you think that Apple can do all this stuff? Do you think that there's some of it that's out of the question? Please tell me. Or in fact, are you waiting for an Apple Silicon laptop or a desktop? Just write laptop or desktop down in the comments so I know which one it is you're waiting for, because I really kind of want a desktop, but I'm kind of swaying towards maybe a laptop so I can dock it and then take it. What do you want to do? Follow us on Twitter, find us on Instagram, and I've been David for Living on iPad. See you on the next one.